So first, I'd just like to say thanks to everybody for your service to our country. As we think about Veterans Day and what Veterans Day means, I know each of you have sacrificed at one point during your life, or maybe still are in the service. So thank you for that. There's a couple people I just heard on the call mentioning that they weren't aware there was a Veterans Alumni network at NC State. So the goal is to, over the next year or so, to try to develop that awareness, maybe even get to the point where, as we kind of exit, hopefully get to a point where we can start to exit the restricted COVID stage that we're in, and we can get to, where we can have events again physically in person. We can do some, community service in areas that reach out to veterans and, build our presence, not just in North Carolina, but elsewhere in the United States. I personally live in Clemens. I live just south of Winston-Salem. So I represent, the Triad. I don't know if there's anybody else on the call that's in the Triad market. I'm sure many of y'all are in Raleigh. But the roster I just mentioned that has the NC State graduates that are veterans as well is 5,195 is what we have officially published. And we think that number is probably greater, where there just might be some gaps in the data. So we're looking to, reach out to as many as we can, make sure everybody at least knows that it exists, and provide some type of value to the community and be able to help each other out. I personally am hiring for looking for people in Lexington, North Carolina, down at a plant I just opened, and I'm constantly looking to hire people around the United States. So if there's ever connections we can make to help people get jobs, or to just help support each other post NC State, post military, or even if you're post NC State and still military. So with that, Melissa, I'm not sure if you had anything you wanted to say, or.
Sure, yeah, I just wanted to say hello and thank you all for your service. I hope you've had a nice Veterans Day. And we're really excited to see this group continue to grow. And we're excited that you were able to schedule this during our Red and White Week. I know many of you have said that you heard about this from the emails about all of our events going on. And I encourage you to look. We have a ton of events happening between now and Sunday even, just to see if there's anything else that sparks your interest. But we're really thankful for you, and we hope that you enjoy this presentation that Chris and Gary have put on, because it's pretty great. So thanks.
Awesome. And by the way, I'm not sure if this is happy hour, so I don't know if I'm the only one. I've got a Hopium IPA from Foothills Brewing. And okay, good. So I'm not the only one hiding mine.
You don't win.
So Foothills Brewery, many of you probably know, is right here in Winston-Salem. So I do love the Hopium. They've got the tasting room just down the road. So my wife and I like to go there now and then. But anyway, I hope everybody has something that they can enjoy. All right. So the NC State Veterans Alumni, I already kind of pretty much introduced this. We're looking to grow the collaboration and network, and we want to provide value, right? We want there to be something that we can do to give back. I gave a speech on Friday to military veterans that were transitioning from the military into civilian careers, or into education, or into, their next stage of life. And one of the things that I mentioned is, when you get to where you're going, which I guess it's life's always a journey, but turn back and reach the hand back out and help those who are trying to find their way. There are so many opportunities post-military, and NC State does a fantastic job with, career support, transition, and the Veterans Network with Daniel and Nick and everybody. There's a lot of resources people might not even know about that are available. And as we network and we get that information out to others, I mean, you always have another day to impact a life, right? So with that being said, let's use our experiences, education, and leadership skills to network and give back and help each other where we can. Okay, so we threw some trivia questions in here, because there are a lot of, and of course the number one we should have put on here was how many are members of the actual Veteran Alumni Network, which we didn't have, none of us actually knew, including myself. So that will be one we'll have to research and get back out to everybody and put up on LinkedIn or Facebook, which, by the way, we do have a LinkedIn group. We have created a LinkedIn group for this constituency group at NC State. And so please engage with that, join that group. Several of us on here can approve you. So just put out the request and we'll approve you for that group. Another place you can post jobs. We can, just share with each other in the community. So anyway, what year did the Military and Veterans Service Center open? And do many of you even know that there is a Military and Veterans Service Center at NC State that does a lot for veterans transitioning into school and helping them after they graduate? Any guesses?
2016.
Oh, I forgot to say there's prizes. I'm behind here. There's prizes. Go ahead.
2016.
2016. That's right. Good job. So Benny, we got to mark that down. Melissa, do you got that? Benny gets a T-shirt.
Yeah, I feel like Benny probably already has a T-shirt, but I'm happy to send him one. For those of you that don't know, Benny is the executive director of our Alumni Association.
Okay. All right.
But Benny, I can get a T-shirt if you didn't get one yet.
And a 30-year retired Navy fighter pilot.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Thank you for your service, Benny.
It was a privilege.
If you don't believe it, look at his office.
I'll have to pay a visit to your office one day.
I won't charge you admission like I will some of our colleagues.
Sounds good. All right, number 2, how much money was awarded to veteran students via Veteran Education Awards during the 2018-2019 school year? Anybody have any thoughts on that? We'll just get closest number wins. Any guesses?
They're in the chat.
What's that?
They're in the chat room.
Yeah, Rob Hickman gave it up to
Oh,
everybody.
where's the chat room? I must have lost that when I'm in full screen here.
And I think there was 2 at the bottom.
Yeah, we've got a 6.6 guess and a 6.27.
Okay, 6.27 is correct.
Whoa, very accurate.
That is very accurate.
Yeah. Does he work in accounting?
Oh, the answers are beautiful.
All right, Melissa, were you able to get who that was? Because it looks like
Rob Hickman.
Rob Hickman. Okay, excellent. Now,
Somebody must have read the press release.
I'm in full presentation mode here. It seems that I do not see where my chat bar is. I may have lost it.
You have to open it. It's down at the bottom.
Oh, there it is. Got it. Okay.
And we appreciate your honesty, Caroline.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. So with that, I'm not sure how many of you know who Gary Ward is, but Gary Ward's a retired naval commander, served 38 years in the U.S. Navy. He owns and runs his own business and is CEO of Quality. I always get this wrong, Gary. Quality Improvement Partners.
Yep. Quick.
Gary does an immense amount for veterans. He is giving multiple different courses in Lean Six Sigma and continuous improvement. So I'm really happy to have Gary, and we're very privileged to have his daughter joining us too, who is in the U.S. Coast Guard Reserves, if I got that right.
Wow.
And is an officer working with Amazon Warriors and several different things. So we get to hear from both of them, a family duo of state veterans. So welcome and thank you, Gary. And Gary, would you like me? I can stop sharing if you want to share, or
No, you can just be my Vanna White if you want. I'll just say next slide.
Very good. You just trigger me, and I got it.
And so looking at the people that are on the camera, I appreciate that it is an experienced audience, because frequently when I teach people that are younger, they don't get all of my older references. Like Rodney Dangerfield. I bring him up and it's like, okay, crickets.
I don't get no respect.
Yeah, exactly. But Maggie doesn't know who Rodney is, so I appreciate the audience. So thank you, Chris, for the introduction. I'm happy to be here, and I guess I'm here just the same reason you're all here is we care about veterans. We've served alongside wonderful people. We've gotten more than we gave in many cases. And so we feel fortunate to have had an experience and work with great people, and anything we can do to help others that have raised their hands, support and defend the Constitution and put service before self. They're special people. And so that's why I care so much about giving back, and I'll do it as long as I can. So any of you have the background to be a speaker, not just me. And I don't think any of you could have matched my price though, but if none of you like this discussion, you get double the amount I was paid in refund right off the bat. So I'll give it all back to you, okay? How many people in the chat are active students? Anybody? Timothy, you looked young before you hid your camera. Anybody active students? Okay, we're talking to a bunch of graybeards then. Okay, well, we'll change the focus, because originally putting this together, I was thinking it was going to be like a group of people that attend my Lean Six Sigma class, and that they were going to be, attending, thinking about transitions to careers, thinking about how to deal with COVID and at a stage in their life. So I see. Is anybody else an undergrad? Timothy, are you an undergrad? Timothy, can you answer me?
So,
oh, assistant director. Okay.
yeah, so Timothy is actually the person that's going to be working with this group moving forward.
Okay.
Yes, our team is split amongst a lot of events this week, including tonight. So he might be managing two at one time right now.
Called out.
And Timothy, you had no idea that you're going to get called out. You just thought you could walk in and be real quiet. No, just like being in my classroom. There's no hiding in my classroom.
He just walked into all of them. He wanted to see everybody. So don't worry, you all will get to know Timothy soon.
You can tell, Timothy, you can tell everybody, avoid this one, right? This is the group that you don't want to sneak in the back of the classroom. There's no hiding.
There,
He should relish looking young as long as he can.
Yeah. Okay, next slide, Chris. So thinking about an agenda, so the goal is, I guess, to be helpful and not boring, and I'll try very hard with that. The assumptions are that people are in transition, looking at how to deal with careers, and so the happy accident is that when I volunteered to do this, it turns out Maggie was coming to visit North Carolina, and Maggie is better than me in terms of her interaction with the military. She's done a lot, and she's definitely more present day. When I left active duty, it was so last century, and Maggie is much more in tune with current events.
What a great photo. That photo is awesome.
That's a dog.
Yeah. That's Lacey. She's a sweetheart. So I guess everyone, there's no answers really. I just wanted to share ideas for people at different stages in their careers, and we welcome feedback. And I guess really the bottom line for us is, since most of us are here supporting the Vets Alumni Association, how can we make that more vital? How can we make it more helpful? Because we've got to connect with vets, and my experience with vets in college is they're smart in that they've seen the world, they come to college and they know this is what I have to get done, and they do that. And they've got lots of other things going in the background. So it's not easy to engage them as an audience, and it's taken a long time. I work a lot with the Student Vets Association, and it's taken a long time to get them involved, but I keep seeing it getting better and better and better. So that's the good news. And I guess as we come together as an alumni group, we can add even more. And so this is a good first step. So for the first edition of this type of happy hour, I think we'll try to make it the best step forward we can. So the two things I was thinking about in terms of agenda were transitions and productivity in the COVID world. And going over the agenda with Maggie was, well, how we spend our time, how do we know what's most important to them? And so we're thinking about doing a poll, but if there's no people that are active students on the line
Or actively
transitioning, is anybody actively transitioning in career? Raise your hand. Yep. Okay. Clark is one. Good.
George Worsley is still working on finding a career.
Oh, was that a poke at George, or is George here to defend himself?
I'm right here at the top.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So George, you know where Benny lives, and you can get back at him, right?
Well, the problem is, I think all these naval officers all outrank me, so
Oh.
I never got very far.
Looks like there's a couple people retiring.
Yeah. It's a small world, because actually, Benny, I've met you before when I was there for Shelton. And one time when you came to talk to Shelton Leadership Challenge, you were introduced by my youngest daughter.
Oh, really?
Yep. So it's a small world, and
It sure is.
Yep. So you can see
That's what a family you got. Or should we
oh
say-
yeah, it's you know, when you're lucky, you can look back and go, okay, nothing I'd change. I feel fortunate, and yeah, 3 daughters, all Coast Guard, and what can you say? You know, it's a blessing in life that they all, you know, they support the Constitution, they salute the flag, they serve the nation, and I couldn't ask for anything better.
I tell you what, I can tell you some stories about the Coast Guard that were truly incredible. You know, because of them, you know, every day is a potential quote combat day, because you never know what you're going to face, especially in crazy weather like we've been having this year.
Oh yeah.
So it's you know it's prime time potentially on any given day for this Coast Guard professionals, and some of the things that I've seen, it's just been eye watering.
Yep. Yeah, they are on the front lines every day. We're, you know, the Navy, we are frequently training to fight the war we hope we never fight.
Right.
So I guess in terms of transitions and productivity, we'll just go through and talk in general, and I'll give more time to Maggie. Let's save most of our time for Q&A. And really the big questions from you is, what can we do as an alumni group? What kind of advice can we give to help veterans and be more successful at state, in the transition, and giving back to the world and community? Because these, you know, the reason I love working with veterans is because, anyone familiar with Adam Grant and Givers and Takers? Okay. Your homework assignment is look up the YouTube Adam Grant Givers and Takers, 15 minutes. It's a wonderful talk. He's a great speaker. But the reason I love working with veterans is veterans are definitely more givers than takers. You know, and so I feel like anything I can give to support veterans, I'm happy to give. Okay, next slide, Chris. So in terms of career transitions, you know, so you can see on the left side, typical career that a lot of you have lived something equivalent, right? I grew up in New Jersey. Well, you can see on the left-hand side, if anybody in here had gone to my Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt class, you'd know that it was brought to you by the letter N. So New Jersey, Navy, nuclear power, NC State. The big takeaway from my career is a lot of transitions that involve major cuts in pay. And my advice to younger people would be to recognize that being good with finances gives you the flexibility to change when you realize that you're in the wrong field. And in fact, Maggie has relayed the question. I remember a discussion I had with her about, I was going to take a big pay cut. We're going to have to start over and be a little tight with money because I want to change my career. But that's things you do. So the NC State, you can see my roots run pretty deep. Started going here as a student in '87. So I don't know how many people can say that they have attended as a student, they've worked here, and they volunteer here. Maybe a third of this group, I would guess. Yeah, Russell, yeah, Betty, probably quite a few. So you're my people. We're in the right place then, because you know, when you believe in an institution and the value it can bring to people in the world, it's a great place. And actually, when I worked at NC State, I planned on staying there forever, and changing dean, changing direction, and I moved on. But next slide. So transitions, I talked about my career being able to make the changes, and it worked out well for me. I guess what was not important, if I was talking to younger people, I would say that don't worry about the perfect solution, don't worry about the perfect resume, the perfect LinkedIn profile. It's not what you do as much as who you are. And I think the lesson I've learned is that most of my career transitions have been because people reached out to me instead of me trying to push and find something. And I think if you are the best version of you, good things will come to you. Sounds corny as heck, but I believe it. Let's see. What seemed to help? We talked about that. And Mag, anything to add as far as transitions?
Yeah, I transitioned out of active duty. I did 8 years active out of the Coast Guard Academy, and then transitioned to the reserves in 2017. So I went through it knowing that I pretty much had a you're fired date. So that was a little scary. And I'm sure a lot of people on the call did as well. Kind of the thing I've been trying to do since setting Amazon is I've been super involved with the veterans affinity group or employee resource group. And I think that one thing, especially during COVID, has been super important, is helping people who are not getting the opportunity to connect with their teammates, to have that veteran group at your place of employment has been super helpful. So especially if this group is, well established and has those connections, ensuring that the place that you work has those support systems for the veterans that are also joining new or also have been there for a while, I think is a super important piece that's worked well for me, because I really leaned on it starting at Amazon. But the only other piece I have for that is kind of switching the card a little bit, and that this group is more on the giving end versus the taking end. Is something I saw on LinkedIn today that their platform had actually recommended was for everybody on this call or everybody on LinkedIn that has a network and has opportunity to give feedback and help a veteran, even if we just put out there, hey, I'll review your resume, I'll connect you to somebody I know, I can help answer questions. And I've gotten a lot of interest even in doing that, just a simple post today. So, taking advantages of all the experiences and opportunities that we have to give, I think is something that could be a big win for this alumni group. And it sounds like, Chris, if you guys just started up a LinkedIn group, that could be a really good place for you to kind of reach out and help those guys out.
Good. I listened to her and think, do I talk that fast? And probably the answer is yes.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities. Even just this past Friday, we were working with a military career transition day. The state actually hosted, and HoldVet is looking for volunteers to be mentors to people transitioning out of the military. So yeah, definitely lots of ways that we can connect there. So thank you.
I do have one other point, but I haven't participated in it myself, but I've heard really good things. It's called American Corporate Partners, and they are an organization that pairs transitioning veterans with successful veterans out in the corporate sector. I've had a couple of my colleagues at Amazon go through, and now we're actually in the volunteering side of the house, and they could not speak more highly of it. So that could definitely be a great organization for having the opportunity to directly engage with, transitioning military veterans or across I think it's across the country at this point.
Good. Any thoughts on transitions? What kind of advice would you give people looking to transition their career? In a few sentences, since there's a lot of people with a lot of experience, what would be the number one piece of advice you'd give somebody?
Well, I think one of an important resource is your own network that you've already established.
Yep.
And you can open a lot of doors. You can make the introductions. And once that's done and you've teed it up, as you've said so well, both of you, that they bring so much more than just some experience and a little more maturity. Mm-hmm. I love what you've all said. And Gary, I love the fact that so many people have reached out to you. And it just reminds me of, that speech that Dr. King gave a long time ago, but still resonates today. And the best line was, how you judge a person, well, quote, by the content of their character. And that's why people reach out to folks that they have, that they already are predisposed to have, quote, trust, because that's the most important element in a relationship, whether it's employment or a friend, a teammate, or whatever. So, they come and demonstrated loyalty, hard work, commitment, and trust in each other. So they bring in a hell of a skill set already. And so if we can use our network to open those doors, introduce, give a recommendation, then you've done a lot at that point. They'll take care of the rest. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. And by the way, I'm enjoying an appropriate beverage here.
Okay, something in a nice cup. What is it?
Yeah. This is Old Elk bourbon.
Oh, okay. And it's neat, huh?
It goes even better in NC State Old Tuffy glass.
Yep, no doubt. So anyway, I like what you,
That's just my thought right away.
Yeah.
Is you already have so much to offer in access that they don't have, but you have that.
Good. If I can build on Benny, one thought is that I'm seeing a lot of veterans that are transitioning that think that LinkedIn is a check in the box thing, that I need to get a profile and I need to have connections, and number of connections is the measure of success, when really it's not the number of people you're connected to, it's the number of people you have relationships with, the number of people that realize that you are there to give back. And when people see that, you're not just a taker thinking of yourself, but you're giving to others, that's when good things come to you, instead of you trying to say, I've got 500 connections and 3 articles. No, that's the window dressing. You know, it's the person you are that really brings the interest and makes the connections.
That's right.
Yeah. Maggie,
Hey, Gary?
Maggie's in the chat. Go ahead.
Yeah, this was Ken Oppenheim. I work for the Defense Department organization called Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. And
ESGR, they're great.
yeah, NC State has got a lot of people that are in the Guard and Reserve.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of jobs things called NC for Us. They can go online and find jobs. And we go out and talk to employers and explain how important the Guard and Reserve are and how they can support their employees that are in the Guard and Reserve. And there's very few times I go talk to them where they don't ask me, how can I hire more veterans? How can I hire more people that are in the Guard and Reserve?
Mhm.
Yep.
And I was just with Mako Medical the other day, and they're dying to hire veterans because that's all they hire.
Yeah. Well, Amazon hires, what's the goal that, does he have 10,000 vets as a?
I think it's much higher. We have 40,000 active veterans and reservists right now.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
No, I've done a lot of, so as part of my slides, I talked about, I give back by teaching a Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt class, an 8-hour class. And I've taught over 100 Amazon warriors because they, once I worked with Maggie and taught a couple of classes in Seattle, and then it was, okay, how can we do more of this? And I've been fortunate. I think my next class in December is my 35th class. But
Wow, good for you.
yeah, I feel fortunate to give back. But I guess, how can we change the demographics of this call from us to the people we think are going to gain the most? I think that's our challenge. And I guess, Chris, that's, how do we change it to where people that aren't involved can see this as useful and not just a bunch of graybeards talking about the good old days, myself included. That's why I brought Maggie. Maggie's my antidote, right? Wait,
I was going to say, I feel like the alumni is where, I think the statement you had of givers versus takers is that the card is flipped now. And so this is the group that really has to lean in and figure out how to take advantage of the opportunities that were given to you and make that exponentially better for the group following.
Mhm.
And I think it's just a matter of support. I look at it at a very granular level. If I can have one veteran that I've succeeded. And so I'm much more on he's helping classes of 30. And if I can talk to one person on LinkedIn who's interviewing at Amazon and explain, how your military resume can translate into something there. I think that's one thing that we could, easily all start doing, and that can, maybe LinkedIn isn't the right platform, but if your alumni group is like hosting conferences or resume reviews, that's a lot of what Warriors does for the veteran community. Because we have a lot of people come in directly out of serving. They do high volume hiring operations roles and have a lot of aspirations to move up to leadership. And we have to continue to support them to explain all their experiences are super valuable, and they have a lot of opportunity if they trust themselves and they can show that has a really high translation of being successful. It's really on that community within those companies to foster that culture of being there for them. And I think that's something this group, I'm sure, has a lot of capability to do.
Good. One thing I would offer, if you're giving advice to a veteran that has interest in project management, first, the PMP, Project Management Professional Certification through the Project Management Institute, is one of the most valuable certifications in terms of jobs. So that is a very valuable certification, that it opens a lot of doors. The North Carolina PMI chapter in Raleigh is one of the biggest in the world, and helped start the Veterans Networking Group, which helps translate military experience to qualify to sit for exams to get certifications. So make sure they know that the PMP is a useful certification, and we have a group right here in North Carolina that's very helpful with it.
NCRQ, the certification, you can take a class directly, I think PMP and other classes, but they'll cover the exam fee as well.
Yep.
So, which is, it's decent. I think it's $500 or $600. So the fact that you get a full course and then the official accreditation is another great opportunity for veterans.
Yep. Any other thoughts on transitions before we jump to the next productivity one?
The only thing I would just comment on, Gary, is that there just are so many resources out there available to veterans, just like
Yeah.
Maggie and yourself and everybody else, has been mentioning. And I think, the more that we can just share something on social media, or, the more we can just share what we know with others in the network, that can it just multiplies out. I mean, there's so much, that I didn't even know about till I started getting involved and started learning. There's so many resources available, and North Carolina is a very veteran friendly state. There's a lot of resources in this state.
Okay.
You actually brought up a good point, Chris, is that I on my doing good for veterans today, I've been saying I would review resumes. I thought about all of the different programs that I utilized when I was transitioning out. And if any of you connect with me on LinkedIn, I pretty much laid them all out there. And so there's programs that Stanford University at the Graduate School of Business runs, where veterans get to go for a month. And as a cohort, get taught by all of the teachers at GSB. Tuck at Dartmouth has opportunities to learn, and these are like top programs, and they're all out there. It's just a matter of finding them, and I threw everything I knew on that post. So if that's something that you guys are looking for, at least places to start of recommendations to provide, there should be some good ones on there for you to share.
Good. Thank you, Maggie. Aren't you glad I brought her? Smart enough that I didn't just bring her because she's smarter than me, but she's taking a better road in terms of transitions, which is what you hope
Set
for.
me up there.
Yep. So the next thing we're going to talk about is productivity in the COVID world. Now, I don't know how many of you have had careers upended, but there's it's a whole new world. And personally, in my business, it basically stopped. I was doing consulting and teaching, and all plans postponed indefinitely. And it's required adjustment, but it's been okay because I've been able to actually shift to a different type of business that's worked out well. A book I'd recommend to people. Well, first, if any veterans are thinking about entrepreneurship and taking control of their destiny, Bunker Labs is a wonderful group. They're well-funded. They support vets that are small business oriented. They've got a chapter in Raleigh that has regular meetings, but I actually started Bunker Labs in Seattle with Maggie. So if they're interested in becoming a entrepreneur, Bunker Labs is very good. The other thing is, if you're thinking about starting a business, one thing that worked well for me was a book called Lean Startup. Basically, you're not going to have all the answers when you start into a new line of business. And so they have something called MVP, Minimum Viable Product. And you just want to get something good enough to launch and learn. And it's a bit of iterative learning, but it's worked well for me. I started a new line of business I was honest to the people and said, okay, I don't know how far this is going to go and if we're going to finish. But it's gone well now to where next year is looking pretty full, and I could be overbooked. But I guess in times of COVID, you have to recognize that we can't go back to the way we were. It's a whole new world, and it's going to require new approaches and taking advantage of technology just like we are today on Zoom. I was initially reluctant to use Zoom, but I think with proper adjustments, limiting class size, having lots of interaction, it's worked out fairly well. So in terms of opportunities, you don't know what is out there until you start trying things. And I guess I'd say get out and explore. Don't feel like we have to follow the same path we all have, because that same path was laid years ago before COVID. So, Meg, you want to talk about virtual onboarding?
Oh, sure. Yeah, Amazon has done a lot of research into. We just went through our first completely virtual intern experience, and so that was juniors in college working to create a network, set themselves up so once they are in their senior year, they have a place where they have an opportunity to succeed. And it was hard this year. We had a lot of insight from that group on people being worried to reach out, people worrying that they're bothering. Everything's quantifiable because you're pinging people. You can't just have that off the desk conversation. And so for in places of employment where people are virtually being onboarded, again, it goes back to that same conversation I said before, is Warriors, the veteran affinity group at Amazon, is really trying to lean in and be super proactive with reaching out to those people and providing a lot of almost identical types of events like this, where just getting together, having the opportunity to connect with people that understand that part of your life, the transition that you went through to work there, and giving them opportunities to learn different things and continue to develop professionally. So that was just the one piece is reaching out the same way you would to any other employee. But, you know, if you have that connection, it gives you an easier way to connect and feel like somebody has a support system, especially at a new place or a new place of employment.
Any other lessons learned from living and working in the COVID world? How have you all adjusted? What's worked well for you? Anybody? We're all just hunkered down and trying to stay safe? Yeah. I mean, because Maggie and I were talking to the high school senior this afternoon. And imagine yourself, I mean, he is one of the best cross-country runners in North Carolina. And everything he's prepared for, all of a sudden, there was no indoor season. There's, you know, it's like, okay, college, prom, all those things. It's just such a strange new world. And I think we just have to get past that and start helping people to realize that, okay, what's important in the world? And no matter, regardless of all the things that were lost, there's still good things. I mean, I think, you know, maybe with life a bit slower, we spend more time with family and we appreciate the simple things a little bit more. But we have to kind of recognize that it's not all negative and help people with that adjustment. In terms of productivity, I think, you know, I was marveling a couple days ago talking to Maggie and her fiance. Imagine if this had happened 5 or 10 years ago before we had all this fiber optic cable. I mean, just can you imagine the world? It would have just ground to a halt. So we've got things to be thankful for. Yeah. So.
Well, Gary, just an observation, if I could share with you all. Your question was a very good one, and when we do return to quote normal, it won't be the normal that we used to experience. We're going to be so much better. And I'm going to give you a specific example. When I left the Navy, Harley Davidson recruited me. And so I went to Milwaukee from Tampa, Florida, in the Special Operations Command, where everything changed except I still couldn't dunk a basketball. But I'd been there a couple of years, and our chief operating officer wanted to launch a work remote program for a lot of really good reasons. And so we identified the positions that we thought we could do that. A lot of them were administrative support kind of roles, which made a lot of sense. And so everybody was schooled, expectations were set, we were ready to go, and so we launched it. And after about 6 weeks, we scrapped the program because people just were not that productive. They were not that responsive. We were waiting for responses in a world where the decision loop is very quick in the corporate world sometimes, where you have to make informed, accurate, timely decisions. And so that process was compromised more often than not. And not because these people weren't great, they were super, but they'd never been in that kind of a role before.
Right.
And so because of those challenges, and it was a pilot program, after 6 weeks, we scrapped it. I was very pessimistic when we went into the shutdown. And at the Alumni Association especially, we are loaded with great people. And Timothy is our latest first-round draft pick. So I was a little skeptical. But I'll tell you, the experience that we've had here compared to 10 years ago or 8 years ago, there's no similarity because it's a different time. And because of technology and other factors and some wonderful people here at NC State, we have done even better in some cases. And we've learned that we can provide a variety of engagement opportunities that kind of fits the time, the convenience for a lot of our alumni and friends. And so we're getting, I think as Melissa may have said, instead of getting like 100 or 200 people for an event, we're getting into hundreds in some cases. And of course, there's a dropout rate. But what we found is that our staff is responsive as ever. One thing for sure is, and here's an example tonight, the ingenuity, the creativity is just incredible. They've blown me away. And so I think we're going to be able to provide even more value and relevance by a multi-axis way of engaging and providing opportunities like what you have planned for our veterans and their families in ways that we couldn't before, because we can deliver on their terms and not necessarily ours in person. So I think going forward, because of the talent, the incredible motivation and commitment, we're going to be so much better later on. and take our limited resources because of the pandemic and use these opportunities almost as force multipliers. We're going to be so much better going forward. So the experience I had at Harley years ago is nothing like I'm seeing now because of the quality of the people, the commitment, and the advantage of having technology to support all that talent and commitment.
Yeah, Benny, I think you hit on a really interesting point. At Amazon, we were starting to realize that we wanted to expand into new cities, but interviewing in person was still a requirement. People were really uncomfortable interviewing virtually over time. You didn't get that same ability to connect with people, and it was something we kept trying to do, but it just didn't work. And then COVID happened, and we had no choice. And people's opinions of it and ability to figure out how to make it work, their mentality and the mental model around it was so different. And now it's been super successful. We're interviewing in places we've never interviewed with. We have a much larger group of diverse interviewers because we have cities that we can utilize that weren't able to be involved in the process before. So I do think exactly like you said, and I mean, you're a perfect example as well. You didn't want to teach on Zoom.
Yep.
You had to figure it out, and you've seen good things of it. I do think there'll definitely be benefits, and the hybrid of the post versus whatever the future holds will be a better version of what we were all doing before.
I agree. I mean, now my weight lab taught people in Africa, Naples, Japan, and this is, I was just teaching at NC State most of the time. And so it has expanded the potential. I'd say the challenge, and I agree with what you said, Maggie, the challenge is that most of our relationships that continued online have stayed high performing. It's the absence of forming those new informal relationships. We don't need the coffee machine or the coffee pot or, and so, and I think we have to be cognizant of that and kind of plan for it and try to make it happen a little bit more, which hopefully meetings like this will help if we can, if people can see the value and we get together and we just have some relaxing conversations. And, we intentionally didn't want to do death by PowerPoint. I'm much more comfortable talking to people, and Maggie's the same way. It's not the information, it's the relationships. And that's what we have to keep emphasizing. Any other comments, Russell?
Gary, sitting here listening to the conversations, a couple of things come to me as ideas of things that might be of interest to the group. You mentioned teaching. I'm not sure where you're doing your teaching. This
is the classroom, Zoom.
Oh, just on Zoom. Okay.
Yeah, I used to teach at NC State, but yeah.
One of the places that could be worthwhile to try to do something relating the military and to people in the world out there that have never been associated would be possibly an OLLI class. The OLLI Institute here at NC State is a very effective way of getting to a larger group of outside people. I started when I came back here. I came back in 2010, I guess, or 2009. And in 2012, I started teaching an OLLI class on climate change every year, 6 1.5-hour lectures over a period of 6 weeks. And that's gotten to be very popular and very interesting. And I just finished a couple of weeks ago a class that had 65 students because they were just interested in learning about climate change. But I'm sure there are people that would have an interest in learning more about the Department of Defense and being in the military.
Yeah, veterans benefits.
Veterans benefits, and also young people who are trying to decide where they're going to go. And that might be for some of them to consider going into one of the military branches.
Yeah.
And one of the other things I think might be worth considering, another thing I've done a couple of times over the years, once at Penn State and once down here, was to talk to the ROTC groups. In other words, almost all of us, all of you, have some kind of experiences from your time in the military that might be of interest to relate to some of the young students and give them ideas about what's gone on in the past and give them clues as to things they might find really challenging and interesting in the future. And we do have a group here. I think volunteering to maybe, write down a title with a few sentences of what it's about, and volunteering to the military people that teach over at the ROTC classes, that you'd be willing to go in for a day and give a lecture, or maybe these days give it on Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what I do. Next slide, Chris. Perfect segue, Russell.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things I do is I teach an Introduction to Lean Six Sigma class. It's an 8-hour class. And the last time I advertised it through the NC State Veterans Association, the class filled up in 10 minutes. So there's definitely interest out there. And I'm not advertising the class here, but this is what we cover in 8 hours. So it's quite a bit of good information. But I agree. I think if you make something useful available, if you build it, they will come. And if we can do that in a way that links veterans together in their network, I mean, I offer this just to veterans at no cost because I care about veterans. And I get lots of people that my uncle was in the Navy, but okay, there's only so many people I can help at a time. And if I focus on helping the veterans right now, my wait list is over 60 people, which is 5 classes going into April. But I agree. And maybe that's something that if each of us figures out a way to give back and give back something that people see interest in and want to attend, then that's how we can help our veterans. And, what I always ask of veterans is pay it forward. The things that you learn that make you better, more valuable to organizations, what are you going to do to help others? And that's what I continue to strive for with this. So it looks like we're at a good time. Chris, you want to take it to close out? Is there any other questions here?
I mean, Gary and Gary and Maggie and everybody, I mean, I think this has been great discussion. A couple things that I've taken away personally from this, and actually a very good book. I've read it myself, The Lean Startup.
Oh, good.
That's a good recommendation, Gary. Also, The Breadth by David Epstein. I saw that you were putting that down in the chat.
Yep.
So
yep.
For those of you, if you didn't see in the chat, that's another good book. If you're interested in reading some books. And then Bunker Labs, that's actually something I didn't know about.
Oh.
And so that's very helpful for me to hear. And, thank you for the presentation and for the discussion, really the discussion, and for what you guys are doing, and great work, Maggie, with the Amazon Warriors. That's great stuff. So with that, I've got.
Well, let me ask Chris first before I let you get into questions.
Yeah.
Has this happy hour met your goals? And if not, what can we do to make the next one better?
Well,
and you can say, damn you, Gary, I don't want that question.
I think that's a question for all of us, not just me. I think that's a question for all of us. Look, we don't want this to be something that's stressful. It's one more meeting to go to after a long day of many of us have Zoom meetings, right?
Yep.
We want this to be something where we can engage, we can network, we can share stories, we can share experiences, and then leave and make a difference until the next time we meet, which hopefully eventually we can, have some more physical happy hours. But anyway, so I would defer that to the chat box or to others who want to comment.
Yeah.
I think it's been valuable to me. I've enjoyed myself. I'm listening to some great things here. And
I like Rob's comment of intros. I think that's a good one.
But trying to do this in an hour is a challenge. So we'd have to make sure. I mean, if each of us, there were 30 people signed up. So if everybody did 1 minute introduction, that's half of the session.
Well, you introduce yourself in 15 seconds.
Okay.
Good test, anyways.
True.
All right. Well, why don't we do that? Just name and branch of service you served in. We'll go around the top. We'll start with Russell. You're at the top left, at least on my screen.
Well, I was in the Air Force and then ended up staying with the Air Force Laboratory after my active duty for the next years. I was there a total of 21 years at the Air Force Cambridge Research Lab. some really interesting studies. I've got well, I don't even know the titles of them now, but a stack of classified reports and then a lot of open access reports on the science of the upper atmosphere from PIing 9 satellite instruments and that kind of thing.
Wow.
So it's been a great time.
Awesome. Ned.
All right. 28 years Army, primarily in military intelligence around the world, and currently where I'm stationed, where I'm living now, is outside of Fort Meade. The skills and talents changed from what military intelligence was, but I found that a lot of my assignments are now actually career branches. Electronic warfare made a comeback. Information operations made a comeback. Cyber operations came out from behind the door and became a career choice. So, and space operations, yeah, I forgot about that one. So my assignments went from 82nd Airborne Division and finished up on the Joint Staff in Washington, D.C., stayed there. Followed that with 15 years working for the Navy as an engineering manager in a program office, and retired about a year ago. So for your next thing here, a lot of what you've been going over with are people who are transitioning out of the military into their next job or next career. So one of the things you should take a look for are people like me who are retired, and what we can contribute or offer a help. So that's my say.
Great feedback.
There's a book called What's Your Encore, I think, that I referenced when I was starting to think about the same thing.
Okay.
Excellent. Thanks. With Caroline, but I'm thinking it's not Caroline.
Yeah, hi, this is Brett. This doubles as my daughter's virtual school computer. I made my username. But yeah, Brett Gillies, Navy for 11 years as a helicopter pilot. I did one tour overseas on staff, non-flying, before I got out.
Fly Navy.
That's right. And I'm now a project manager in, I'll call it the pharma industry, but a very specific part of it, the patient services side of things, right outside Charlotte in Fort Mill, South Carolina.
Okay. I did a lot of work with patient services and Biogen. Yeah.
I saw, yeah, your background slide. There was a lot of similarities, but I'll certainly reach out, Gary. Thanks for doing this.
Do that. I'd enjoy it.
Yeah. Terry.
I was actually Air Force ROTC at NC State, graduated in '79, commissioned into the Air Force, had a career in the Air Force, did a number of opportunities as a contractor to the Department of Defense, and I'm now a professor of information technology at Defense Acquisition University.
Cool.
Excellent. Let's see, Benny, I think you already introduced yourself.
Well, a little bit, yeah, but not the military part so much. But I came to NC State with a boyhood dream just to get a degree so I could be a Navy fighter pilot. I had no idea what I was getting into. And so the first time I got in any kind of an airplane was when I graduated, went to RDU and flew to Pensacola, Florida. I'm sure if you could find that airplane in Davis Moth and Mothball somewhere, you'd find my fingerprints in the armrest. But anyway, a 30-year career, incredible opportunity, wonderful people. I was blessed. I commanded the Attack Squadron 55 on Coral Sea. I commanded supply ship USS San Diego. I commanded the aircraft carrier USS America. I got the Battenberg Cup. It's the best ship in Vanny Fleet. I was flying the F-14B Tomcat. Then later on, I commanded Carrier Group 6, Battle Force 5th Fleet. And then my last job was Deputy Commander-in-Chief of Special Operations Command in Tampa, Florida. So none of that would have happened without this dream being made possible because of 4 years at NC State. So as a senior exec at Harley Davidson, when the chancellor called me up and said, "We want you to come home, we need your help," the answer was yes, because a call-in trumps a career. And I think a lot of the people on this call can share that because you understand what a calling means and the contributions and the impact you can have, especially on a lot of young lives. And so it's an obligation on our part, I think, And we've already talked about the incredible relationship that NC State's had with the military. And you can't drive down Hillsborough Street without seeing that and the Alumni Memorial Bell Tower. So thank you all for being on this call tonight. There's a lot of opportunity we have to make a difference, especially working with our support center. And Nick will be back hopefully pretty soon. So I'll follow up with Melissa and Timothy. There's some really good things I think we can do based on what I've seen tonight to provide even more value to that wonderful organization. So Chris, thank you a bunch.
Thank you. Well, appreciate it. Wonderful. Daryl.
Greetings, everyone, from the proud state of New Jersey. It is good to see you all and be here. Daryl Jones, class of '87, United States Marine Corps, 80 to 83, 0311 was the MOS. I was a part of ROTC at NC State University also, and I'm very fortunate to be a part of the conversation tonight. So one of the things that I would add, I know it's sometimes taxing, but if there could be more of these types of events, I think would be appreciated, particularly as we look at bringing some of the undergrads or recent veterans into the fold. Thank you.
Excellent.
Daryl, a belated happy birthday.
Rob.
Hey y'all, Rob Hickman here. I'm retiring after 31 years as an Army officer here on 30 June of 2021, a 1993 grad of NC State from the Army ROTC program. My elevator pitch is that I'm a strategic communications planner and also a modernization and innovation integrator in the current job that I do. I'm just trying to figure out what it means to go from being a lieutenant colonel, Rob Hickman, to being Rob Hickman. So that'll be interesting. And real quick, everyone get your glass up and a toast to those and to those like us. May God bless our souls.
Yep.
Amen.
Thank you, Rob. We have one here that says iPhone. Not sure. And then we have Timothy.
I'm not a veteran. I just work for NC State Alumni Association.
Very, very important component to the constituency group. Thank you, Timothy, and welcome to State.
Thank you.
Taylor.
Hey everyone, Taylor Francis, currently Lieutenant Colonel stationed at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in North Carolina. I'm a weapons systems officer. I fly the F-15E Strike Eagle. Current position right now, I'm the 4th Fighter Wing Director of Staff. Career-wise, I've been in the Strike Eagle my entire career. Was stationed at Seymour Johnson previously. I did a year at Saudi Arabia, then was selected as an Olmsted Scholar. So got to learn Romanian and then did a couple of years in Romania, getting a master's degree in international relations there. Did a year of School of Advanced Military Studies out at Fort Leavenworth, and now again back to Seymour Johnson. Currently expecting to be here for at least one more year and hopefully a few more after that.
Hey, Latch, welcome home.
Thanks, Benny. Appreciate it, brother.
Great. Thanks for being on tonight. Melissa Fennell.
Hey, good evening. Actually, it's Melissa Fennell. You're fine. Trust me, I get it all the time. But my name is Melissa Fennell. I am Cal's class of 2001. I currently reside in the Charlotte area. Basically moved here after graduation from NC State and pursued graduate school. I am a lieutenant commander with the U.S. Navy Reserve Medical Service Corps. I actually took, some would probably say, the non-traditional route. I attended DCO, or Direct Commissioned Officer School, in 2014, and I was commissioned as a lieutenant with the U.S. Navy. And again, I currently am serving as a lieutenant commander with the U.S. Navy Reserve. I wanted to say this is awesome, and I feel honored to be a part of such a wonderful and elite group. I'm just elated and ecstatic to be a part of this. So currently, I am working as a program manager with Atrium Healthcare. I've been with Atrium now since 2003 for about 17 years in the Information and Analytics Service Department.
Great. Thank you for being on. Thank you everybody so much for being on. I'm Chris Cornett. It does say Christopher on there. I'm not, I guess it's through my Google thing or whatever, but I served in the Navy from 2001 pre 9/11 to 2007. I was a first class petty officer, electrician by background. I did get my MBA from state in the Jenkins MBA program, had a terrific experience there. And that's really what motivated me to get involved with the veterans programs at state, because of how they treated me when I was at state and all the benefits and how easy it was, considering I had not such a great experience when I went for my bachelor's degree at another university, not state. So I thank you everybody for being on the call. I think we're right at time. I was going to do a couple more trivia questions, but it's become apparent that apparently it's showing the answer. So I don't know what happened with that. So I'll just tell you.
Everyone gets a T-shirt.
I don't know. I guess Christopher got a background on there. So anyway, we'll have to let Melissa figure out who gets T-shirts. But anyway, currently, the most recent number is 856 student veterans are currently attending state. So that's a large group to reach out to. That's a large group that will not too long from now be transitioning into the civilian world, or transitioning from school with a military background. One more group of people we can reach out and help. So anyway, I hope this has been valuable. Thank you everybody for your time. Thank you most of all for your service, and Melissa, and Timothy, and Benny, and everybody. Thank you for allowing us to put this together and have this event.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.